As a confidence coach in Calgary who works with businesses and individuals, I have seen that confidence looks different for everyone. In this podcast, we explore confidence through the eyes of our diverse community, redefining it one conversation at a time. Welcome to Confidence Redefined. I'm your host, Alyssa McMasters. Today, we are joined by Dennis Agbegha, a customer experience expert, peacemaker, and explorer with a mission to create lasting impact. Dennis is a prominent connector within Calgary's tech, finance, and nonprofit sectors, recognized as one of the most exceptional networkers in his sphere. Beyond his professional achievements, Dennis is a devoted father to 3 sons, exemplifying an inspirational balance between fatherhood and business. In 2016, Dennis immigrated from Nigeria, and since then, he has masterfully cultivated a network and community in Calgary, characterized by mutual trust, respect, and love. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with Dennis about his journey as a new Canadian and how he maintains his confidence, his mastery of networking, and his approach to balancing fatherhood and business. Welcome, Dennis. Dennis, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. I can't complain.
Great. What is something really exciting happening for you right now?
Oh my God. I might have a baby tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes, that's exciting.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wait. Like actually do tomorrow?
Yes, actually tomorrow.
Dennis, how did I not know that?
Definitely
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody have Dennis's phone just in case? You have your watch? Okay, we gotta go.
Yeah,
you got
no,
half an hour.
Very good. She
That's
gets it
exciting.
used to,
Oh my goodness, that's so exciting.
That's exciting. My last son is David. He's 12 years old now, so it's 12 years. I haven't tried this, so let's see how that goes.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Okay, so you're having a baby, you have a 12-year-old. That's a nice little, gonna be extra busy. And the reason why I wanted to bring you in today and why I just adore you as a human and why I think that you exude confidence, right? And why, again, this podcast is called Confidence Redefined, which is why I wanted to bring you on, is you have just such an ability to connect with people and such an ability to see them for who they are and find things that are really beautifully connected. And that's what I think is so beautiful in your superpower, right? What do you think your own superpower is?
My superpower, I think, for me is just appreciating everyone for who they are, who they want to be, and just accept that. I think accepting everyone is, I think, my superpower. When you accept people for who they are, who they want to be, it just makes life easy, right? Who you want to be is who you want to be, right? I go to places where people say, like, tell me what I'm going to do to be different. It's like, no, why do you want to be different? You're yourself. But if you talk to me, you talk to somebody else, you talk to 2 people, you're going to find some things you want to change, some things, some things about life that, you think you want to embrace. That's where change starts, right? So I think for me, my superpower is embracing people, loving people for who they are. When you love people for who they are, we begin to see our similarities instead of our differences. So I think that's my superpower. And it helps me connect with people. I'm like, oh my God, I know like somebody with that jacket. I saw them yesterday. I connect both of you together. I think, and that's also the other way we're able to build community as well. So I think that's my superpower. The other thing again, people that will tell me, define who you are. I will say like, I'm an explorer, I'm a connector, I'm a peacemaker. If I add all of those things together, it gives me the ability to serve. Everywhere I go, I want to serve. When we have a conversation, I want to find out how I can serve. Because, in this world, everybody's wanting, like, most times people like, what do I want? What do you want? But it's always about going, like, how can I make a difference? How can my conversation with you change your life? Or how can your conversation with me change my life? So I think those are things that, for me, that are practical things that I do that, I say that's my superpower.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
And what I heard in there is a couple different words of being who you are, right? And being okay with who you are.
Yeah.
And then also loving people who they are. Do you think that that's what confidence is? Or what do you define confidence as?
That's a good one. I think the whole definition of confidence comes literal definition of confidence. If I think about myself growing up as like an African man, confidence is being able to stand your grounds, hold the forts, be confident about life, taking care of your family. You're not scared of anything. You can stand up to anything. That's that whole definition of confidence. Confidence, being strong, all those sort of things sort of interrelate. I always want to give this example. When my mom died, I was in London. I was in class. I was doing my master's, and my brother calls me and he says, "Mom is dead. I just want to let you know. Talk to you later. You're a man." And I'm like, "What?" Like being a man, being that persona. Sometimes that's what people, that confidence, like I can do all things, I can stand all things, that's that whole persona of confidence, right? So, but for me, it's more than that. It's just being myself. When I want to cry, I cry. It doesn't mean I'm not confident. When I want to say, hey, I'm sorry, it doesn't mean I'm not confident enough. So I think it ties back to that, accepting people for who they are, knowing that I see that like when people are down, we all have down times. We all have times that we're not ourselves, but it doesn't mean we're not confident. We are confident. I think being confident is being able to say, hey, this is the way I feel. I feel sad right now. Right now I feel down right now. That is what confidence is. Confidence is it's standing in that, for me, is standing in that place and being able to express, at that point how you feel. And those times, sometimes it could be joy. Sometimes it could be happiness. Sometimes it could be sorrow, right? So for me, I think that's confidence, knowing all those things around you and just move forward. That's my explanation of what I think confidence is.
Yeah. Yes, Dennis. Yes. And something you said in there that I think a lot of men face is that concept of, well, be a man, handle it, right? What do you think the idea of being a man versus what being a man actually is? The idea versus the actuality. Is it the same, or is there lots of differences there? And how did you determine what that difference looked like for you?
Yeah, I think for me and for many people, sometimes there's examples, experiences of what being a man is. Like you had the dad who was a man, you become a man. You're surrounded by men in community, so you learn to be a man, So for me, that's how I was, taught to be, like this is a definition of a man. And, I'm sure we'll come to these conversations, like, just like growing up in Nigeria and coming, traveling out of that, it's a different world. I remember growing up and people would say, there are conversations you go and people say, stop that, that's a woman talk. And, it never sat down with me. I was like, why is that a woman talk? But, as I've grown older, I begin to understand it has cultural significance, like the things, all around that defines who a man should be or who, based on gender. But for me, I think it is different. For me, I think that being a man is being human. Being a man is understanding that, hey, if that person identifies as a woman, it doesn't mean that person is lower than you. Being a man means that, just like I said earlier, I should be able to show my emotions. Being a man doesn't mean I should be, like rock stone solid. I should just be human. Being a man is just being human. People will say, these are the things that, certain times how society and culture defines what a man should be like. He should be this, he should be that. And sometimes people find issues because they can't fit into any of that. And like, okay, does that mean I'm not, right? Does that mean that, like I'm not good enough for it, right? But that's not it. So for me, being a man is human. Being a man for me means knowing your limits. Being a man means accepting everybody as equal. Being a man means like, knowing that whatever happens to you can happen to every other person, right? So that's what being a man is to me. And doing that has made my life a little bit much more easier because I don't have to like, this is the expectation of me to be the warrior. I just want to be me and know that I can get support from other people. So that's my definition of being a man.
Dennis, the round of applause that I want to give you right now.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Now, it's interesting when you say, you know, you're from Nigeria, you moved here in 2016.
Yeah.
What was that difference? What did that difference look like, right? For your own identity of being a Nigerian man and now being a Nigerian man living in Canada. Was there a big difference there? And was there an ability or was there an issue with your confidence or was there a change in your confidence when you came to Canada? Either more of a positive or more of a negative change. What did that look like for you?
Yes, you know, first of all, my sister lived in the UK, then she moved to the US. So, you know, this was the days there were no emails and all that, and we would write letters that you don't get till 3 months' time and those sort of things. And watching TV and all those sort of things. It gave me a perspective of what life was living outside of Nigeria. So I could look at these things, I could, you know, listen to these things and say, okay, you know, this is how it is, right? And usually sometimes I think many people don't get prepared, you know, like it's, especially for economic immigrants, it's more of like, hey, I just want to go there to have a better life, right? For me, it was not just going to have a better life, but for me, it was about going to live life. Because I always say there's a difference of being alive and living life, right? I felt like, you know, where I was coming from, I was trying to be alive most of the time, but I wanted to go in there and be alive. So when I landed, you know, I felt that I'd already achieved that success. So for me, it just gave me the opportunity to want to, and that natural self of, you know, being curious, you know, wanting to know things. So it just built my confidence. And above all, you know, I felt I kind of landed in the best city in the world. You know, this city is where people want to help you, people want to love you, people want to show you the way. So those sort of things help build my confidence. I know there were lots of other people who had said, you know, things that have happened to them. They've had like bad experiences. You know, to be very, very honest with you, I've not experienced any of that personally. It doesn't mean that people do not, but people do. But I think that people welcoming me, you know, people saying yes to me, you know, people wanting to say, hey, I'll come pick you from your house, take you around. I think it kind of helped me build confidence. I knew that it wasn't going to just be bed on, you know, like, how was it going to say, roses on bed or bed on roses, a bed of roses. I knew it wasn't going to be like that. But what, you know, based on the experiences that I've had growing up as a child, you know, growing up as as a person, I think I just kind of put all of that into coming to Canada, and it just helped me build confidence. And each day as you go, you know, it's something that each day as you go, you learn something, you build on it, you put to the next, the same stories. I'll give, for example, like growing up, pets wasn't a thing. Right? Like pets wasn't a thing, you know, like we would always say, like, you know, growing up in Nigeria, having a dog is like a guard dog, right? That sort of thing, you know. However, when I moved to Canada, I realized it was a different ball game, you know, like I was very curious about that and getting to know. Then beginning to find the things that was different from where I came from and that was different here, and being able to like, oh my God, that's so cool. And setting it as a point of conversation helped me build confidence, right? I would be able to like, oh my God, like I know of that dog, I know of this, I know of that, those sort of things, you know, setting some points of intersection, setting some points of similarity, you know, for me to be able to chat with people. It kind of helped me build confidence. And one last thing I'm going to say again is that my experience of life, you know, helped me build confidence, because I realized sharing my story helped many people build, you know, like saw life differently, made them see life differently. So that helped me build confidence. That helped me, I realized that I was not alone. Everything that I was facing, even though it was in another world, there were lots of other people who were facing the same thing. They were different color, different geographical location, but we're similar in many ways. And being able to share those stories, they could look you in your eyes like, I feel you, bro. I understand what you're saying, and just know that you're not alone. So those sort of things help me build confidence. Those kind of things help me know that everything that happened to me had happened to somebody, and we had so many things to share. And lastly, I promise you on this one, that my mom told me that, remember, son, that you could be black, you could be white, you could be green, but everybody, they all have red blood. So when I think about that, it builds my confidence, knowing that when I see people, no matter where they come from, there are many things that were very similar. There are many things that go in their life. They go through poverty, they go through pain, they go through divorce, they go through shame, they go through all of those things. So when I see humans, I see them from that point, knowing that we are all the same, and it kind of just helps me build confidence from one conversation to the next. Yeah.
Boom. And when you talk about building the confidence through connecting with other people and realizing that you're not that different and finding those synchronicities or those things that are just comically different, like having pets or not having pets, right? Being able to connect to people in a way that you can really see them as a human, not because you per se have all these things in common, but what about the things that we maybe don't have in common? Maybe that is a really good connection point. And something that I appreciate so much about you is you're able to build this connection very quickly with people, and you're able to build this community from this place of such authenticity that people want to help you. You have a network that I think a lot of people are very not only impressed. You've only been here since 2016, right? A lot of people think that, well, you grew up with those people, you kind of continue having that friendships, and that's how you get your jobs, that's how you get the next step, that's how you gain your confidence. But what does it look like when you come here in 2016 and you have to build all of that network yourself and you have to build that community, and you've done such a fantastic job about finding the people who really want to help you and you really want to help them. So do you have any advice for people who are looking to build their network, maybe get into a new career path, maybe get into a new hobby, but they're kind of afraid because they don't know the right people, that they want to get into something and they need support in chatting with somebody, in connecting with somebody? Do you have any tips for those people who are looking to network?
So the first thing I always say is to find your why. That's a very good place to start. Find your why. If you find your why, you will find a space for you. You will find people there that share the same things with you. You will find people who want to be with you. You will find people who want to chat with you. So first, find your why.
What's your why?
My why is to serve. That is my why. So I went into spaces where I just wanted to serve. I just wanted to create happiness by serving. That's all I wanted to do. But one thing leads to the next, right? I go to places and they just wanted, they needed people to help in cleaning. I loved it. I went and I cleaned. And in the process of cleaning, there was a conversation. And that person said, oh, good to know you, welcome to Canada. That's really beautiful. We're doing this. Do you want to come up our home for dinner? And I went for dinner. The next thing in the dinner, I met 4 other people. And, this person was, hey, I met Danny during the, community cleaning. He just came from Nigeria, that sort of thing. It just started growing that way. Then the next thing people want to know, what do you do? What do you want to do? And people start opening doors for you. So for me, that whole trying to create happiness by serving was my main why. That's the first place I will tell people to start from. The other thing I want to let people know, like, if you continue to see yourself very different, it is hard to, I'm going to emphasize over and over. If you continue to see yourself different, your accent's different, your color different, your friends different, everything different, it always just creates barriers for you. Your belief system's different, those sort of things, So if you, and I know it's not easy, right? It's just like you've come from a different world or a different country. Your belief systems, the things you hold as true, you come into a system where every one of those things are being questioned, right? But for me, I've come to realize is that you can either use those things, either to say, hey, I want to learn something new about why people do these things, or you want to say, well, I'm not going to change. This is what I think is true, and this is what I'm going to be. When you hold that stance, automatically there are lots of people you're cutting out of your life. There are lots of people you will never meet. There are lots of people you will never have conversations with. However, if you come from the mind of like a peacemaker like myself, whereby I want to learn about everybody, I want to appreciate what people do, it kind of just breaks those barriers. It kind of just helps you build that. I think for me, that was how I was able to build that network. And apart from that too, being surrounded by all of these good people who also wanted to serve, moving from being a geologist to a banker, meeting customers, meeting people like I always feel like, oh my God, I want to serve them. I want to help them. I want to help them achieve their goals. I want to help them be, and they knew like, this guy wanted to help us. This guy wants to help us. This guy is not just like every other banker. This guy wants to make a difference in our life. One thing leads to the other. Bless my mom. She had me when she was 53, so I was the son of the old woman. So she always talked to me in many ways. So she would say, that the little drops of water makes the mighty ocean. I don't know how true that is, but the point being is that every little work, every little conversation, every little serving we do all builds that effect. That's what it is. And be genuine. Be genuine to yourself. I'm not trying to be somebody else. I'm just trying to be me. So doing that, I think, has just helped me build that network, whereby you now go in spaces and you can see 10 people who are going to vouch for you. Like, I know that guy. I know him. He's very genuine. They've dealt with you. They know you're very true to the things you to the things you do and the things you say. So for me, I think those are some things, tips I'm going to say. I'm going to say first, know your why. Focus on that, your why, be open to learn new things. Be able to, forget about your differences. Forget about why you think you can fit in. Find the reason why you think you can fit in. I think that's, for me, those are the tips I can give anyone, to help them build those networks.
Thank you. Those are great tips. Now, you said something that really resonated with me of, you open doors and people open doors for you, right? People open doors for us, so it's our responsibility to walk through them. But I know a lot of people get stuck on the door that closed, right? There's one door that closed and they're mad at the door that closed. They keep banging on that door trying to get back in, and they don't look to the side to see all the 10 different doors that other people are opening for them. Do you have any suggestions on how we can see when those doors are open, or advice on how we can step through those doors when they do open for us? Maybe when we're feeling like, I don't deserve that, or maybe I don't have the qualifications to go from a geologist to a banker, right? How do we step through those doors, even if it might feel like we are not prepared to do so?
That's a very great question, and I'm gonna try to answer from my experience. And, maybe also think about some people who might not have that. And sometimes, it comes down to life situations. Like, when I think about my story, like, did I want to do banking? No. I didn't want to do banking because I planned to be a geologist, and that was going to be the goal. So when I came to Canada and I couldn't find a job as a geologist, that's the same thing as those closed doors. Right, but a couple of things I started thinking about for myself. First of all, I was in a country I wanted to be in. I was in a place where I didn't need to be a geologist to be successful, right? So I looked at everything around me. You could be a community leader. You could work in nonprofit. You could be anybody. This place gives you opportunity to be who you want to be. I think earlier on I identified that. So I was able to say, okay, if this door is being closed, let me find those things that make me be me, where my heart and my mind connects. And to be honest, I wasn't able to just do it on my own. I met a couple of people who helped me connect, and they were like, Dennis, when you serve, when you want to do things like that, when you want to provide good customer experience, you just blow up. Like, there's this light that shows out of you, and I'm like, that's really true, because that's something I love doing. And guess what? Just like we were talking about your MVP, I got a job at a call center. I got it, a call at the call center, and lo and behold, it was light. every person who I interacted with wanted to have a conversation with me again. I started saying, oh my God, I wanted to be a geologist, but however, maybe I should go into stuff where I'm providing that whole customer experience, right? So knowing all of those things and, and accepting it. And, someone is saying that, remember that sometimes when doors close, it's just redirecting us to many other open doors. I think sometimes it's that whole growth mindset. I think it's about that, apart from growth mindset, having an open mind and finding those things that you think that are important for you. One other thing I'm going to say with that again is that when people say they want to change the world, you want to be Steve Jobs, you want to be that, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But my world is the people around me. My world is you right here. My world is the people listening to me. Those are the people I want to change. If I can change those people, I have changed the world. So basically what that relates to is that, when I'm trying to go in that big place, maybe that's not where you should be going. Maybe you should be going in another direction. I know, I've seen people who are doing, big degrees because they want to please their dad or their mom or their family because of they said, I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do that. You need to really stop and ask yourself, does that really make sense? Because sometimes if we want to meet those expectations, we just find ourselves hitting the same door that is not opening, and we get frustrated. We get confused. All those sort of things happen. So for me, I was like, when we get to those points, let's look at many other things that I think we can do. Let us look at life changes. Today I could be on the top. Tomorrow I could be on the bottom. It's reality, it's life. But understanding that my situation has changed and knowing that how do I deal with that change. I think sometimes as human beings, when we're at the top, we want to remain at the top. But does it always happen, right? Are we always going to be there? No, we're not always going to be there. There are going to be the days we fall, but when we fall, let's make other plans. It's not about, they know me as Dennis, they know there's Alicia, everybody wants to see Alicia, and no. We change, who you were 10 years ago, I imagine is different from who you are today. And I think we all change. And I think it's just accepting that and knowing that the solutions that worked for me today will be different from the solutions that worked for me yesterday. So, that's the way I think about that. So I don't know if I answered your question very well.
You bet you did.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And I want to also chat about finding your why, right? And helping other people and maybe focusing on other people's success so that we can, our confidence doesn't have to come from internal or external. What if we allowed other people around us and the success that we are able to provide in terms of the peacemaking, in terms of the connecting, what if that is our ability to be confident, right? What if the ability for us to be confident is helping other people around us, right? And we focus so dearly sometimes on what we aren't or what we are, right? This is what I am, this is what I do. Instead of focusing on this is how I can serve others, right? This is how I can change the world in those little steps of changing the people around me.
Yeah.
And when we think about it that way, that's when we can find our confidence completely outside of us, both not external, not internal, but completely around us.
Yeah.
And when we make people around us more confident, they also exude us. There's a lot of science behind this, which is really interesting, where the oxytocin and the dopamine hormones, right, that make us feel good, when we see someone confident come up to us, it actually affects our own brain because that oxytocin starts running in us. It's the same way that if we're confident to somebody else. So as we start sharing that, that's when we can really see that change. Now, I want to ask you now about you being a father as well, and soon to be a father of a newborn. So exciting. How do you manage, fatherhood and business? And I think a lot of women are asked this, right? How can you manage being a mom and being in business? But I think a lot of men aren't asked this, which is a detriment to both parties, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this is the generation, our millennial dudes, right? Our millennial dads are the generation of the diaper change dads, right? They are so much more involved. And I think we need to get men more into the conversation of fatherhood, right? I know a lot of people that I talk to who are advocates for both men and women in the community, they just want, a 6-month pat leave to be necessary, right? Because it doesn't only fall on the mother. So tell me how you are able to balance both fatherhood and being in business and being such a good connector in the city.
Bless my partners with Laura. So bless her because I think Laura's been my to be able to do most of that. You need like especially when you're in a relationship, somebody who's very very supportive, somebody who sees where you light up and lets you be and lets you light up. Somebody who when you light up makes them feel good, makes them feel accomplished by letting you be you, right? And I think I've been lucky in that way, whereby like either I'm attending events or doing all of those things. There's this person who just says, "Hey, don't worry, I got you. Don't worry, you go," because she knows when I do it, like I show back home, there's that joy and happiness she wants to see, right? And for me, on the other end, it's more building trust, building understanding, like, hey, she's going out of her ways many times, to want to create me have my happiness, and me also looking at those things that also try to make her happy and try to do that. I think, many people don't know that, but that's, for me, that's been a huge success for me, just helping me balance. I've got two boys, which, she helps me all the time. Like if I have to go for an event, I have to go for a thing. Don't worry, I'll take them for basketball. She takes them, and lets me know what's going on. I think, I can't underestimate that support. I can't underestimate it. I think it's been a huge one. So I'm out there laughing. I'm out there making connections. I'm out there creating. There's just somebody who supports me and understanding that we can also have very, very good conversations as well. And, open communications to say, hey, I'm not able to do that today. I'm not able to, support you in this way today and, accept that. So I feel that, I'm working for her, she's working for me, we're a team, and that. Like, you need that. You need some people like, I got you. Like, you just need that. I got you. Because if that doesn't happen, if I didn't have that, I feel that it would have been a different, it would have been a
different story.
Very different story, So, I can say many things, but, if each time I think back at it, I was like, okay, when Laura was in my life, it was a little bit different, the struggles I had to struggle, but, I feel like Laura just became the round peg in a round hole, right? And just been, it's just helped me make more impact. I can say I'm a nice guy, I'm a smiling guy, I'm going to say all of that, but if I want to go back to the foundation of it, is having that person who supports me.
Shout out to Laura. Laura. Now, since you have kids, at 12 and now a newborn, have you seen the concept or the idea of fatherhood change in that decade? Has anything changed there?
Oh, yeah. Thinking about what my definition of father was to what what being one now is. My definition of father was the guy who provided for you. Made sure your school fees were paid, put food on the table. That was my definition of that, not definition, like having a conversation about, oh my God, I saw you with a girl, or I saw you with a guy. Who are those people? Tell me about them. Or, just, those sort of things, having conversation, teaching people about life. So I think that's a huge fundamental shift. Even for me as a person, like even living in my country, like my involvement with the kids has actually changed, because I felt like if I stayed there, like my definition of dad would have followed based on what society has told me a dad should be. A dad doesn't necessarily need to be at home. A dad just shows up and there's food on the table. A dad questions like, I work, why should I have to do this? I do all of that. I think that has fundamentally changed, to understand that we all have equal responsibilities to family and to kids. If mom cleans the diaper, dad can clean the diaper. If mom takes some time off to be with kids, dad can take some time off to be with kids. I think it's that responsibility that we all have we all have the responsibility to make that family a great place. I really want to sit down with my kids and tell them my experience. I really want to sit down with my kids and say, hey, what's up? Tell me what's going on. Let's have that conversation. And it's interesting because in North America, this may be very common for many families, right? But in the world I come from, it's not common. It's not that common. Oh, me and my dad were going for a walk. Or me and my dad were going for lunch. Or me and my dad were going for this. That sort of relationship. So for me, it's a huge change, not just from the fact that we've moved from one generation to the next, is that even geographically the change is different. On yesterday, just sitting down and watching my son play basketball, and I was, him running. I wanted to cry because I was like, my father never had this opportunity to do any of that. Because, for them, like, why would I want to go sit down and watch him play basketball or that sort of thing? But it's different for me. It's different. I just want to be in their daily life. I want to be part of everything that happens to them. And I think fundamentally people have seen that. People change. Have seen that when children even grow up, having that either dad, parents that is involved in their lives makes a whole difference. It makes them how they treat other people. How they behave to other people, how they make the community a better place. I think it shows, right? So I believe that's fundamentally changed, and we're going to see that happen more. It's also sad that, as you're making these changes, there are many other people too who don't have this opportunity to have role models in their lives, and we just fall behind as well. There's always that conflict of, I have a role model, I don't have a role model, and people just see life differently. But I think that's what brought me to my first point of acceptance, knowing that this person didn't have a role model, I had a role model. What can I do in my life to make this person different? This person without a role model will say, that's what makes me stronger, that's what makes me this, that's what makes me that. But I can say, well, I had a role model, that's why I'm loving, that's why I'm kind, that's why I see life a little bit different, that's why I give people chances, that's why I have the opportunity to talk. And I think that as we continue to have these conversations, hope the world just gets better and better. So that's what I think.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Now, if you could give your kids one piece of advice, what would that be?
That's a good one.
Take your time.
I would say I want them to live their lives to the best. I want them to make failures. I want them to fail. I want them to succeed. I want them to learn from their failures. I want them to look back and say, well, I lived life, I enjoyed it, and use their experiences, to make their lives better. As parents, we always want to guide children, like, hey, don't fall, don't do this because I did this, which is fine, which is okay. But if there's anything I'm going to learn, I was like, in spite of everything I tell you, make your choices. I want you to make your choices. I want you to see, it's okay if you don't do what I say. It's okay if you don't do what I say and you fail and you realize that Dad said I shouldn't do this and I've learned from it. It's okay, and I think that's what I'm just going to do. I want them to live their lives. For many of us, we didn't have the opportunity to live our lives like at the younger, because we were told what we needed to do. We were told which school to go. We were told how to behave. We were told how to do everything, which is fine, because I think our parents did that because they loved us, right? But I've also wished like we had the opportunity to try some things and say, hey, how did this make me feel? That sort of thing. So if there's one, I'm just going to say, live your life. Live your life, do it responsibly, love community, be good to others. Just know that you're not alone, you're not an island. Everything you do affects somebody around you. Everything somebody does affects people around you. So that's what I will tell them. And I say that based on, you said something about talking about the experiences. And for me, I feel that I've just learned to just speak about my experiences without holding back. I just say them, and you can either love me for it, or you can either, say that guy's sharing too much. It's fine. From a culture where divorce is the taboo, and being able to talk about it, or based on the things that definition of what a man should do, and being able to talk about it and say, I think I was wrong most of the times when I did this. I should never have treated my ex-wife that way. I should never have done that. And being able to be bold and say those things and not be scared. Never be scared that with my failures, you're going to use my failures in judging, which is fine if you want to, but I'm happy to share my experiences every little time. So, when I think about those things, I can look at my child and say, hey, live your life, be kind, love people, everyone around you, and just make this world a better place. Make sure you live it better than the way you saw it. Yeah. So that's all I'll tell my kid.
Gorgeous. You used a word bold. What does being bold mean to you?
Not my colors though. My red glasses, yellow shirt. Be bold I think is just for me, and I for me the words, each time I think about the words, they all kind of link. How I talked about acceptance at the beginning. That's being bold. Right? That's for me too. That's being confident. It's just accepting who you are. I think that's it. Just accepting who you are and being able to share, those experiences in the right spaces at the right time. I think that's what I think is being bold. That's my definition of bold.
Amazing. Now, there's also something that we were chatting about actually earlier today, that you mentioned that, we are conditioned to be this certain person, right? We're supposed to be X and Y, and that's based on our generation. It's also based on our culture. It's based on the things that happen around us. Yeah. But then there's a turning point that I see from a lot of people who are very confident. Was a turning point where there's something happens, there's a switch that you're like, what if I'm allowed to accept myself, right? What if I'm allowed to be bold and completely myself and authentic? And I don't have the answer for this. But what was your switch? Can you pinpoint it?
I think for me, if you think about what I came to realize, that this life I'm living, I've been living it from the day I was born, but in different ways, right? I've been doing it, being the community builder, being this, being that. I've always been doing it. Until, I think for me, the change that happened was when I actually had the opportunity to move to Canada and live here in Canada. And so many things changed. First of all, no job as a geologist, now to be at the call center, in banking, was married, became divorced, so I think then I also did this program. I did a higher landing program, which also helped me. It was a program that was supposed to help you make people find jobs and all that. Switch people from oil and gas to that. But for me, it was more of life changing. I think I went into it and just saw life differently. I was, oh wow, realizing everything that was going on. I think for me, that was a huge switch. For me, started finding what made me tick. Being very, what's the word now? Being very deliberate about it. And oh my God, okay, I remember sitting down with this and we will talk why I did this. Why did you do this? You've always done this, so why did you do it? And finding those why, oh my God, I realized that, that whole, serving and loving people made me, being always wanting to be out there, wanting to give my time, to, make a difference. I realized that, oh my God, those things, I've always done them, right? So I think that switch was that whole era of my life, not having a job from geoscience, and, that whole, it was a big, living in Canada. I think it was a huge switch. Even though before then I used to travel, right? I would go spend some time, I lived in the UK for a while and all that. But even all that time, I felt like that change didn't really hit me until I moved to Canada. So now I would think about it would be a combination of everything: the move, the divorce, moving out of the job. I think it just brought me to a place of maybe vulnerability, and just to see myself, like the things that made me happy, had I changed, like to be this person and say, okay, this is who I want to be, and this is who I want to continue to be. So I think for me that was a turning point for me. Yeah.
Thank you. And I find it so interesting having these conversations. And I've known this talking to my clients and the people that I around me, that confidence looks so different for people. And it's so fantastic to sit down with people, different people who have confidence, because every single person at one point didn't. At one point, we also had the conversation today that maybe we are born with confidence, but then everything is stripped away, right? By telling us what we should or shouldn't be. And then there's a certain point where everybody changes and becomes this confident version of themselves. So thank you so much for sharing that and getting so vulnerable with us today.
I appreciate that.
Now I have a question for you. What is the most important thing?
Happiness. Happiness is the most important thing for me. I just want to be, I've just realized happiness is, I know so you say one, but happiness ties to peace for me. Happiness, peace, I put them together. So for me, that's the most important thing. Everything I do, everywhere I go, I just find like, how am I creating happiness? And I've come to realize when I'm creating happiness for other people, I am creating happiness for myself. So that's the most important thing. And I use that in everything that I do, even at work. In banking, I want to create happiness for my clients. And as I create that happiness for them, it creates happiness for me as well. Or maybe in community, how do I create happiness for community? Because when I create happiness for the people in community and they're able to explode and live their better lives, I am happy as well. So I would say for me, the most important thing is happiness. And I ask everybody, find your happiness. When you find your place, when you're gonna find happiness. It's a world where same thing, happiness means different things to so many people. But for me, happiness is it. Happiness, yeah.
Dennis, thank you so much for joining us today. There was so many pieces of wisdom and so many pieces of different ideologies that came through. And I cannot thank you enough for joining us today and sharing what confidence means to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me, to share my own version of confidence.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you soon, Dennis.
I'll see you soon.
Do. There's the exit. Yay. This podcast is designed for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Always consult with relevant experts or professionals for personalized guidance.